Okay, you can start now.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Will Prisco. I work at Purdue University. In my current role, I'm serving as a senior AI engineer for robotic process automation. We use document understanding and a few other technologies. It's great to be here and to meet all of you.
And if you want, you can go ahead and advance to the next slide. I am Tracy Gibson, six-time MVP. Love to talk automation anywhere with anybody, really, any day. So, with Citric Consulting, and in my role, I am responsible for the UiPath partnership, and then serving on projects to just about any role in the automation space. You can go ahead to the agenda. All right, so here is what we are covering today. The focus of today's session, which is now session 6, is document understanding and the Gen AI active learning experience within that. So we're going to talk through what active learning is within the modern experience. We're going to talk about best practices within that and get into some of the details there and the latest and greatest AI-oriented content within active learning best practices. We'll compare that to the classic experience for anyone that has seen that before. So you know the differences between the two. We'll also get into using modern experience projects and then how to use the generative classifier and extractor for documents. All right, and Will, is this mine as well?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Sorry. So I updated this. This should match exactly with the curriculum for those of you that have downloaded already the certification exam, the content of each. So I've got these matched up specifically to the content that we're covering. I won't exhaust the slide and drain it all here, but you can use that for reference. You'll have the deck available to you as well as the recording afterwards, so you can highlight off the list the areas that you've already started to receive training on, and be able to make sure that you've got everything covered exam wise. But this is that full list of the curriculum. Go ahead, Will.
Awesome. So one of the things we're going to do is we're going to start with like an overview of the active learning model, learning, aspect of modern experience. And so, see, sorry about this. So what is active learning? So active learning allows for, hold on one second. My notes didn't save. I apologize. Okay. Here we go. So active learning enables document understanding to learn by asking humans for help. And in short cycles, it finds fields that are like less confident about, and then sends those to a human to annotate. And then by annotating those fields and updating it retrains on those fixes and repeats so they can learn with fewer examples and reduce overall labeling time. The model also scans a batch of unlabeled documents and picks the ones that it's least certain about, so that forms where key fields are unclear, so that you as a human can label those and provide information and also enhance it through training through each round. And so the
Will,
training
are you sharing your screen still?
sorry.
No, just want to
Apparently
make sure
not.
it wasn't me.
Yep, no, you're fine.
There you go.
Okay, is it?
Yep, can see that perfectly.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So the training process runs in like coordinated batches. You label, you retrain, you evaluate, you publish. And so you do this in sync.
The learning really is a key element of any AI project. It's not really AI if you don't have the ability for it to learn and learn what's incorrect and what's correct, and take that information to make the predictions better in the future.
Yeah. And so like we use active learning a lot with regard to whether it's the annotation, also Action Center. So one of the big benefits of the modern experience is that it's a no-code workflow that allows you to upload documents, label those fields in a visual UI, which guides you along the way. It's really intuitive. And then you train and you publish, and then you can follow the guidance for any additional changes or enhancements that will help the model improve itself over time. And so this allows anybody to build, evaluate, and deploy models without needing specific coding experience or writing any code as a whole. Um, with the active learning and the auto labeling, a lot of the information is pre-filled for you. And so it kind of shows you the different parts that it's capturing within the document, the different pieces of data that's associating for you to evaluate so that you can train, evaluate, and publish in pipelines. And once those are done, it provides instant metric dashboards so that you can see, the kind of efficiency of what you've been accomplishing through the process. One of the things I find really, really helpful, especially with the modern experience, is the guidance it provides. So if you look at the statistics, which we'll see with regard to measuring, if there's areas that can be improved, it will give you specific guidance on how to improve it, whether that's uploading a document, annotating more pages, or if you have a specific field, it will point that out to you along with a percentage point on where that confidence level is and what to do about it. So the built-in analytics are very helpful. They appear pretty much instantaneously, and they can help you provide precision of approach for enhancing the model or expanding it. So there's kind of four main stages with regard to the modern experience. We've talked about a little bit about these before. I'm not typically one to read from the screen verbatim, but you've got the build phase, which is what I've talked about before, which is that guided no-code flow with the active learning, the auto labeling, and the out-of-the-box extractors. And it just allows you to assemble high-quality models fast with few samples and very few steps. The measuring, which I mentioned earlier, is once you've built it, and they're kind of in the process of building it, to be honest, you can see instant analytics of how is your building going, what areas is it struggling with, or what it needs some more guidance on, and then what you can do to kind of enhance that, with guided instructions. And so it makes it really easy to verify the performance against your targets. Um, Publishing is very, very simple too. I think this is one of the benefits of UiPath and just how they design the modern experience. Very intuitive, it's very helpful, and it's very streamlined. So you click to train, you click to evaluate, you click to publish, and the versioning pops up so that as you publish a new version, you have access to the old one. So if you need to roll back, you can, but you also have the ability to kind of see those versions as you're working through. The monitoring part I find really helpful, especially in my work, because it creates a dashboard for you to be able to compare different versions. This allows you to track drift, see the outcomes over time, but also to, I would say, more quickly assess, is the model still providing what you need? Is it improving? And then you can share that with, at least for us, sharing it with our business areas, because adapting a lot of these technologies, it's about building relationships. It's about building confidence and trust. So being able to show that business area through the monitoring process of like, here's where we were, here's where we've been going, and here's where we're at. They can see in real time the value and the evolution of, ingesting documents and how it's, extracting the data to help. Um, and then, accessing modern projects is really, really simple. I definitely prefer it compared to the classic experience, and there are times you might need it, but this is where I think you'll get a lot of bang for your buck. So one of the things to make sure though is that document understanding is enabled for your tenant. It may not be, so you'll just want to make sure, like in Automation Cloud, you go to Admin, you go to Services, and you make sure it's selected. But then you open up the Document Understanding app on the left-hand side of the navigation, select Create Project, not Create Automation. And then, as you can see in this slide, you enter a name, and then you select the Modern Experience instead of Classic, and you create it. You don't need an API key yet, so don't worry about that at the moment. And now we'll talk about labeling data and training extraction models. So as you can kind of see here, uploading data is really simple. There's kind of two ways to do it. You can have files that are already sorted, especially if you have files of multiple document types, or if you don't have documents that are sorted, but they're pretty much of the same type, you can upload them. One of the recommendations is that if you're kind of creating your files and sorting them, that you put like a vendor layout name. And that way it helps you organize those files. It also helps the model and kind of directing those files to the document type that it's associated with. And for each document type, you'll need at least 30 samples so it can get a really good sense of whether it's an invoice, a W-2, some other form. What are the structural components that are consistent and it can map to, so that it pulls out the data correctly. If you don't have sorted documents, or you don't need to sort them because it's all the same document type, I'm working on a project right now where it's invoice files. And so I just take those files in a folder, I drag them up, plop them in there, and it goes through the process of processing them. It correctly labels them every single time, and then it provides them in a space for me to be able to annotate them, which we'll get to in just a moment. So before the annotation, what you'll see is how the document understanding is kind of associating and processing the file, like what it's picking up for key areas, and those key areas will be linked to fields on the right-hand side. And so that auto highlight provides its best guesses for your defined fields. So you'll see that underlying text along with colors, and the colors help to differentiate and to connect which part of the document is it, pinpointing, and then what kind of field on the right-hand side is it associating with. So these pre-annotations really speed up the labeling process, and they're really good guidance for understanding, here's what it's looking at, here's what's found, here's what it's kind of thinking, and it gives you a reference point of which we'll get to in a moment, of is it capturing what I need it to and where I need it to, or do I need to guide it a little bit? An early mismatch is normal. So if you see, and we had to do this as well, if you see like where it says SWA, let's imagine that SWA isn't actually the information you need, because it's not, you need the Singapore Water Association. That's a normal thing, and you can guide it to grab the actual name of the vendor later. You can't delete these pre-annotations, so don't worry about that. Just ignore it, just don't confirm them. And I can share from personal experience, the pre-annotations will improve over time as it learns and as it trains. Okay. So here's a validated example. And as you can see right now, like the different parts, it went from underlined to highlighted, and then you'll see that the columns on the far right have been selected to validate, yes, that is the correct information, that's the correct location. So you'll want to make sure that you review each field suggestion, and that for every defined field, check the underlying pre-annotation, and if it's correct, confirm it. And if it's not correct, you'll be able to, you won't be able to see it on my screen, but you'll be able to click and drag the, the source location within the document and then associate that with the field itself. If there's missing information, let's say on a vendor like an invoice, there's a piece of information you're consistently looking for, but for this one, it's not present. You'll want to select marked as missing, because that trains the model to understand that information is not on this document. It's not that I didn't find it, it's not there. And that helps to optimize and guide it as well. And then as you finish up your validation, you'll want to save it and then move to the next one. And one of the great things I found is that once you've got your entire batch of documents annotated and ready to go, you proceed to training, and then you proceed to evaluating the model so it learns from it. And then you can see those predictions pretty quickly. One of the other things that I found that's helpful, at least for the models that we're building, is that sometimes, what I'll say it this way. So you'll have these pre-annotations here, and you'll have these fields. If I know that I don't need specific pieces of information that's capturing, I remove them. And that's helped our process, because some of our requests from the business areas are very bespoke. They're very specific. So we're not going to be able to transfer them to like another process. And so trimming them cuts down the training time, and it really helps the model improve. So one of the things too that we've talked about is selecting the right text. So part of it is that you might have text in different locations that is the same, but you might want it to collect that information from a specific place. So what you'll want to do is, as you're checking the fields on the right-hand side, check where it's pulling it from. And if you need it from, like this is the build date up here, right? So 8/25. Say you need, actually, this is a really good example. So say say it's selected new charges up here, 150, but you don't want it to associate the total amount with anything in this area. You want it to kind of use this total amount due. You'll select 150 down here and then associate it with the total here. And that way the annotation will, it will help the model understand where that data should be consistently and what markers in the background it should use to find that data, so that it's more consistent and robust over time. So I would say, just kind of keep that in mind. There's also ways, it's not here, but let's say you want to have row data or chunks of data. You have the ability, let me go back. You have the ability to drag and group things, so you can create custom tables. And that allows you to compile information together, whether it's line items or something else. And that can be really, really helpful as well. Okay. There might be a time when your document is kind of unique enough that you need to build a custom model, and we have one of those as well. So what we do, so when you have a moment for a custom model, what you'll do is you'll add a document type, you'll choose custom, and then you will basically create all the annotations in the predefined areas and highlight them yourself. And one of the values of that is that that will help, in our situation, it helps to create models that match the business processes. So we have a business area that combines a lot of different documents together, modifies those documents, adds additional information. So it's kind of a hybrid of out of the box options, But by building a custom model, we can say, okay, you've got, no matter how many pages are in this PDF that I'm going to give you, I only need like these 15 fields, and I'm going to highlight them, mark them, and then I'm going, and that's going to kind of set the stage of what this document type is, and then and set those pre-labels. And then as I add more documents and annotate them, it will learn based upon that optimized custom model. I've personally found that the benefit of that is it just allows that tailored experience for the business area and the processes. And it also seems to be a little bit faster when you need to use it, because it doesn't need to pre-label anything, because it's using your specific labels. So we've talked about a lot already. I'm sure like it's like a water fire hydrant. So here are some best practices to think about. One of the things that we recommend is that you name your files clearly. So with that prefix of vendor layout, and I'll try to put something in the chat as an example. And if you're using multiple types or document types, that kind of prefix of vendor layout's really, really helpful, not just for you in organizing them, but also helping the model identify them. And also keep in mind, you'll want 30 documents minimum for each sample type. And so that is kind of a good sweet spot to start with, annotating and confirming the fields, and also the pre-labels that it's using. One thing that can be easily missed, and so I'm going to highlight it, if there's a field that you're looking for that's not there, keep in mind to mark it as missing, because that trains the models to understand it didn't make a mistake. That information is not there on this document. And then following those recommendations is really, really helpful. It will streamline your use of the tool, but it will also give you really good insights of what to do in order to move forward or to improve the accuracy and the efficiency. So some of you might need to make sure that you choose an OCR wisely. So just keep in mind, like the default OCR is for Latin script languages, Hebrew or Arabic. There are also other options, and you can select those language options as needed. So there's that extended languages OCR if you need them as well. So now we're going to talk about measuring and deploying. I find this to be one of the most satisfying parts, because as you kind of see it label your documents, as you see it kind of pre-label them, and as you're annotating them, you're getting some feedback back, which is really great. But as you measure it, you kind of see the, in a sense of like, you put in all this work to upload the documents, to annotate them, and then you get to see, oh, this is what happens now. Like, this is the value of like doing that kind of legwork. And so, like, the main objective is to assess the performance. And there's a lot of information on this page, but it's all helpful. And it may feel overwhelming at first, but if you just kind of take it chunk by chunk, I have found it to be incredibly intuitive and really, really helpful. And so, as you can see on this one, it says 60%, 66% average, and it gives this, the classifications poor. And on the right hand side, it gives you very specifics of what to do. And so just following these steps and going through them will improve the project score. It'll also make it very easy to understand, what do I do next in order to get this where I need it to be. And so one of the things that I've seen is that these metrics and these dashboards, for me, and I think for a lot of others, remove any confusion of what's going on. It's baked in a way where you don't feel or need to go through all the documentation to understand what to do next. And if something's misidentified, if there's any labels or thresholds or samples that need to be adjusted, it's going to provide that here, and it's going to guide you through the process. And so let's see what else here. Yep, I think that's that one. So the classification score is a really important part of the process as well. And so using the factors tab as a to-do list. So we kind of looked at the previous screen, kind of showed the different things to do. What you can do is you can kind of take those steps if you'd like and create a to-do list of like, okay, I'm going to do this one next, and then see its results immediately after you get that done. And then kind of following that through. I find that the metrics tab kind of provides a sense of where am I at with my total process of getting this ready for publishing, and that way I can kind of make iterative steps along the way, and also be able to provide feedback to my team if they have questions. We have daily stand-ups, and also to anybody who is asking about where are things on the progress of this project. It also helps you to, gives you information with regard to, the number of documents that need to be trained. We mentioned earlier that 30 is a minimum. And as you saw on the previous slide, there may be more documents that you need to kind of give it that, to improve the model to meet your needs. And that's okay. So the precision measures how often the positive predictions are correct. And you'll see that as well. And that precision can actually get down to the field level too, which is, I find to be incredibly helpful, because it tells me, okay, this piece of information across the documents is a little tricky. And so that might be one of the reasons it needs more documents for it to be uploaded and annotated, so it can get that specific field correct for you. Recall measures the proportion of total possible results, and the ones that the model was able to verify. And then the F1 score harmonic mean between the precision and recall. And all of these are to help you understand where it's at in its training process, where it's at for its score level, and what you can do to move it forward. And you can see that here, right? So with the classification scores, we see the factors and the metrics. So factors over here, that's your actionable guidance to improve the data model health. It also helps you to prioritize which spots do you want to address first, and that will give the biggest lift to moving the model forward. And once again, like I said, it helps me to kind of creates its own to-do list. And what I find really awesome, to be honest, is that as you upload more documents, you can go to this metric score and you'll see it move. So it has this very direct correlation of, as you do work over in the factors, these metrics will adjust in real time to show you how it's improving the model, how it's finding more success. And also, I find these as almost like hotspots of like, okay, with regard to health IDs, that might be a little bit more tricky than ID cards, which makes sense. In our situation, we use TDX tickets, and there's a little bit more free form in how people can enter information than one might expect. And so it helps me to understand, okay, this free form portion, which someone might actually put information into, that is going to need a lot more assistance, and I know why. So if I need more time to work on anything, I can communicate the reason and link that reason to the actual process of creating the model. And I have found that to be incredibly helpful with setting expectations, but also building awareness and confidence with our business area. Our business area is pretty conservative when it comes to some of these technologies, because of all their requirements that they have to meet. And so part of your action plan is going to be looking at, your targeted recommendations. Is it annotating? Is it uploading more documents? Is it prioritizing fixes with the weakest fields and types? And these colors are to provide that sort of visual touch point of where is it at in the process. Is more labeling required? Is it just recommended? Or has it met a level where the training for that area has been achieved? And that way you can kind of get a sense of where you're at. And so one of the things that you'll want to do is like make sure like each document type has enough annotated examples for the fields. And so as you annotate, just take your time. It's really easy to kind of get into rhythm, especially when you have over 30 documents that you're annotating and doing over and over again. But just take your time through it, because making sure those annotations are accurate will help improve these scores and get the model to where you want it to be. And so these touch points with regard to the colors, but also the numbers and the guidance really help guide where's your extraction at, where's your project at, what do you need to do next. And so this is just kind of a deeper dive into matching all these things together, from the factors to the data set to the metrics. And you can kind of see how they all come together. And so these factors, like we talked about before, creates that kind of to-do list, how to improve the model. The data set kind of shows you where you're at with regard to specific things, such as annotating, more pages. And then the metrics associated with this. So these kind of three dashboards together combine and correlate to show you kind of where you're at, how's it going, and what do you need to do next to kind of get that model to where you need it to be. So just a few things. So you need just 10 documents to get a project score. Keep in mind, a minimum of 30. And so sometimes, at least in my experience, sometimes getting started, you get the 10 documents and then you kind of get a feel for it. It's okay to be, to kind of take your time and get adjusted to the tool, the layout, the functionality. So starting with 10 can kind of get you rolling. But as you get those 10, in the pipeline, you'll want to get up to 30 minimum and then follow that guidance, because you might need more as well. One of the things is that you can overtrain. So when it reaches your desired performance, there's kind of this feeling like, well, if I give it more, it will make it even better. These models are optimized, the technology is optimized, and it's really, really smart and sophisticated. So once it reaches that performance, there's no need to feel like you need to give it more. You don't want to overtrain it. You want to find that sweet spot. And once you get there, it's okay to stay there. And then you can publish it and you've got that version, right, kind of locked away. And then once again, I just always recommend, the action, following the actions and the guidance to fine tune the model's performance. So far in my experience, which we've used multiple times, it's just been incredibly helpful. It's helped me identify specifically key fields that just are a little tricky, a little bit more variable, to kind of hone in on those and then complete those steps, the guidance steps. And once we go through that process, it gets it up to exactly where it needs to be. Okay. I think that's me. Or I'm done, I think. Hey, Tracy, I think.
Sorry, it took 4 times. So I saw some activity in the chat. Are there any open questions still? And do you guys maybe want to summarize some of the key things that were asked for the people that were um, listening in and maybe didn't catch up on everything? Maybe one of you guys, Lagash.
Hey, Tracy, this is Chris. I think one of the earliest questions was regarding overtraining, but we'll address that later in his presentation. Also, the question that we always get is low quality documents, scanned documents, the challenges that they present, and there's ways to do that with the OCR engine, like Lagesh recommended, but also the new solution that UiPath has, IXP, which also helps quite a bit with that. I think that covers most of what I saw. Logesh, and you may have some other input.
Lagash and Karthik, did you want to mention any others that were covered that you guys have been answering?
So the only other thing that I see is it possible to process the data further after running the documents through the model? That is, create a list of document names with the invoice date and customer names. If yes, what function to use?
So are you talking about running them through a second time or to extract different things? Maybe if T
No,
could.
I think they're talking about the downstream processing. Once the extraction happens, how to process that data to the downstream systems. I think that's what I'm understanding from that question.
Gotcha. So in my experience, training the model prepares it to be processed within an automation workflow. So there might be a way to actually use the information that's extracted after annotation. I've just never done that because I'm usually using information that's already been processed by the business area. So it's already been done.
Yeah, and these are all like typically RPA functions, right? Well, you can use the extract document data activity to extract the data, and then use UiPath the system activities to convert that into a necessary format, and then eventually Excel activities to push that into a Excel file, and then UI automation activities for processing that into systems, etc. So these are typical RPA functions that you can do, but with DU, you should be able to use the extract document data activity to extract the data first.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we'll cover it on this one, but yeah, there's this workflow. So there's a template that you can use within Studio that kind of sets the stage of what of the different parts. So, the digitizing, the classifying, the extraction. And you're right, like you can extract the data and put it in an Excel file. The great thing is like once it's extracted, you can put it into any connected system that you want. So we use databases because we want to be able to like we use data fabric, it was data service. And so we put it there based upon our project needs, and also gives insight, like real quick visual insight into what was extracted, where, and if we ever have an issue, like if we have a business exception and there's a conversation that needs to be had either internally or with the business area, we can go specifically back to that document extraction and then look what was extracted and troubleshoot it there if there's a problem with the extraction model itself, or it could be something else. So there's multiple options for storing and using the extracted data.
Got it. Yeah. I think that covers pretty much all the questions from the chat. The only other thing that probably I can share some insights into is that scan documents. Scan documents typically, I mean, there isn't any specific model for that. Rather, we have UiPath have 35 plus predefined models, right? Which handles the scan documents like by default. Even if the scan documents have skew that needs to be applied or rotation that needs to be applied, UiPath handles that. There is an option called apply OCR within modern DU, which you can set it to either auto or yes or no. Depending on that, the extraction accuracy will vary for scan documents. So you can leverage that option. But skewed documents, rotation, digitization of scan documents, all those can be handled in modern DU. So all the pre-built models handle scan documents. So it's best to test with like real-time data and see how it performs. And then if you have any questions, as always, you can reach out to the team here. You can reach out to the UiPath product support. But UiPath should be able to handle the scan documents.
All right, awesome. Anything else from the chat that you guys wanted to cover?
Yeah. I think that's pretty much the questions that I see in the chat. So I think covered there.
All right, and we're making good time, so feel free to throw anything else out, and we'll make sure to get it covered either today or if toward the end, or we run out of time, we'll make sure to send that information out. So now we're at the point of talking about publishing the model. Really, what that means, it's not equivalent to just an automation where you've written something and published it, but you're publishing really a state and time of that model, the information that it's got to that point, what you've trained, what it's learned, and you've got a snapshot in time. So you click the publish button on the left, as you can see, and then you'll create, you'll deploy that out so you have that same model accessible again in the future. And then you can automate as well, and add in the product version, and then actually take in that model that you've created. Because generally the point of doing any document understanding project is not just to see the data, but to put that somewhere. And so I think it's pretty important to understand that, on the whole, the difference between automation and uh, pure automation and AI features. So in this case, that the document understanding piece is that the AI feature, it learns, it extracts information, but it's really important to understand that the boilerplate stuff, the automation still has to take that data and put it somewhere for the project to be most useful. So that's still RPA, still the stuff that you guys have likely learned before, to take that and put it in the areas that we talk about that based on the business requirements. So that may be Excel, that could be a database, it could be a whole other app that it needs to retype the information in. But want to be clear that these are synergistic, they work together, they just have different uses. One being the complicated case of extracting all of the information, and the other taking very prescriptive data fields that well known and putting them in a chosen location. All right, we should be able to go to the next slide. So it's pretty straightforward to create the model version. If you guys happen to have a document understanding pulled up, you make sure that you've got publish selected on the left hand panel, and it's just a button on the right hand side. There are some restrictions on what you can name things, but it's very descriptive, and it'll let you know if you happen to have selected a name that's not allowed. It'll give you some guidance there on changing the name accordingly. I know you can start with a number. I do believe a number might be required in the name, but it usually will start creating that right away, where you can then reference it in the future. So super easy, just a couple button clicks and adding a tiny bit of information. As far as models to include, you'll get choices there. Say your project is focused exclusively on invoices. Well, it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to be publishing anything related to classifying documents, because you expect them to be invoices. So you can make the call to just use an invoice model, for example, versus a classifier that might be taking in many different types of documents in a different type of project. And then you click the create button. So pretty simple. Next slide. All right. So as it mentions, each project version has a status. As your model is learning, as you're feeding in information, trying to get it to the percentage that your business needs, or the accuracy that the business requires, it'll be in training status. Consider it trained when it changes the status to trained. Undeployed, you've completed training of the model, but the models aren't actually taking in information. So you're not feeding it more documents and allowing it to change the future predictions. So that it's undeployed. And then a deployed model would be you're out there, you've got it trained, it's got the accuracy that you were looking for, and now you can continue to send it information and flow documents through that model. So it's fully deployed, ready to go, and able to be used. And so again, very straightforward. Love the modern experience because they do really try to make it a much quicker, easier, very straightforward and intuitive process. So just a matter of just clicking that toggle. All right, so best practices. Important to know these, just like we talked about in the first two areas. So you can publish multiple versions if you so choose. You need to know which consume which document types, like we were talking about before. And if you want to update the version, you need to update your automations accordingly. So make sure that you're keeping things in sync. Typically, you wouldn't want many different versions used at one time of the exact same model. Orchestrator has that information for you on asset values. As far as the required resources, we talked a little bit about that, about which elements should be included. Make sure that you select the appropriate ones and think through not just the button click, but making sure that it's got the right things that you're expecting in that package. And there's some additional detail on how you name certain projects and versions and some variable restrictions. I won't go into great detail on that there. All right, so I think part of the beauty of document understanding is that you can, it works across a whole spectrum of information and combines a lot of different things into one location. So it's really important to know that whenever you're creating one, that the recommendation is to use a single project for all phases of that. It's a little bit different than what you may be used to um, on the RPA side. Some folks may be used to moving a given thing through different environments, which can be done different ways, but through, say, a development environment or training environment, and then onto production. And those are all separate things. However, this is a little bit different in the document understanding world and really important to know. So you want to use one environment and just evolve that over time. So why is that? You manage everything in a single place, including sensitive data. So you don't want to necessarily have that transferred across environments. You've got all of the testing, the ability to do everything in the one single place. It's kind of similar when I think about it. I think about Azure DevOps and the fact that you can do source control and workflow, and that Jira's, it can be similar all in one place. And there's better benefit to the product because it's able to link to all of the other pieces and parts, but you can get to them in one location. Think of this in the same way, that you can pull everything in one place, get to it easily. It's all within that one ecosystem, and evolving over time. And so the status of it just changes over time based on where you're at in your project. Additionally, the ability to move it to production without having to go start retraining a new model or add extra time on the project specifically for that is another reason that you keep it within the one environment, one project. And then you don't have to recreate settings. I know everyone has probably experienced before having an automation move to production and having to go out and recreate all of the, say, browser settings or making sure all of the resolutions are right and so on. That can be a complicated list. So you avoid having to do that if you follow this method of keeping everything within the one project for a DU project that you're deploying. So everything's centralized. We've talked already about the having a project version that contains everything within it. And you've got, everything built out, phased out into the one location, all of your history. You can see how things have evolved over time. All right. As far as fine tuning, it's set up where you could easily feedback into the Action Center. It makes sense that initially, really any document understanding project, you're going to need to have folks weigh in on whether the everything looks right, whether it's actually extracting the right information or not, whether the predictions have been accurate, in order to get that feedback loop back into the model to have it get even better. So um, you're able to connect that in easily, and then the data will be available based on what was actually used. A couple of the things, you have the ability to tag things in a particular way if you want to indicate, if your organization might have some policies on what something is considered, and there's some places have a pretty strict set of guidelines on software development lifecycle and on deploying things, but you are able to at least tag what version or what stage it is in to simulate something like that. If you need to call it staging early on and then officially tag it as production as you get down the line and things get approved. Um, Also, the one last thing was the ability to configure a different tenant or org if you need to. That you can do that, but using the same model and the same environment is needed. All right, should be good to go. All right, so after you deploy with really any project, it's important to watch and monitor and make sure that things are going the way that you expect and that you really are getting the results that you expect from the prior predictions, that those percentages of accuracy that you saw before are what's happening in production, because if something else is what you're seeing, then that's a real issue, and you have to go back and figure something out. So important to monitor. This system is essentially connected into the insights features of UiPath. You want to be able to see, one of the things that I think a lot of organizations forget about is success metrics. I think the easiest way to pay for future projects is to make it very visible how much money is being saved, or hours, or how much better compliance is, whatever it is. But you want to make sure that you're regularly capturing success information, because it does pave the way for your budget in the future. It's so easy to lose sight um, of the fact that they paid people to do this thing in the past, or did it a different way. So um, on the whole, whether document understanding or any project, I think it's one of the most important things to not forget to track this, and even years down the line to consistently track it, so there is visibility, especially as the future licensing bills need to be paid, or future implementation budgets need to be considered. So you'll first make sure that you've got what success looks like, those metrics, how long things are taking, how many documents are being processed over time, and so on. You'll also have a number of runtime metrics that you'll want to monitor to make sure that say the predicted um, everything predicted as far as accuracy and so on is where you'd expect it to be. And then consumption metrics, of course, this is where your licensing costs come in. You monitor for several reasons. You need to make sure that you've got adequate units on hand in order to continue to run the project ongoing in the future. And you want to make sure that you don't see a huge surge that doesn't coincide with the number of documents, for example, that would tell you that perhaps something there might be something happening more than it should on the automation side, or there's a potential troubleshooting need regarding consumption of AI units. So you'll monitor those things as well. And since that's a variable cost, it typically is pretty important to keep an eye on that, and to make sure you're minimizing the number of times the models are called and consuming any units in order to keep costs as low as possible.
So Tracy, I have a question before you go on. This is Chris, that I've been asked before, and I guess between you and Will, your opinion. Do you feel that document understanding should be designed for straight-through processing without human intervention, or do you suggest that after you've trained and it's consistently operating for a longer period of time, do you insert human in the loop just to ensure that the straight-through processing is correct?
I always recommend human in the loop personally. And it does a few things, at least in our experience. It continually creates connection and buy-in from the business area. The other thing is that in our experience, like if it can extract, and this is how we have some things set up. So if it can extract, 50, 70, 80, 99% of things, but one thing needs a little bit of attention, that small amount of time for a human to go in, adjust it, and then send it through for processing, just pays dividends in my experience within our context.
Right. You never know when something may change in the future on a form or what have you, that there's an audit need in the future. And I totally agree with Will that you always need the ability for your business to weigh in and really like dig in if they, there's any question, concern, form change need, what have you. I think it's important to at least have the ability to keep humans in the loop to.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the key words you said there was audit, right? You have
Mhm.
to answer to an auditor at some point, right? One
Right.
other question, Tracy, and you may have answered, and I was multitasking, but I think I'd been asked it before. On one of the previous slides on publishing, it said that it could take minutes or hours. How do I know if something's published, if it's taking hours, that it's actually working?
So there should be a deployed toggle on the page. I believe it should be as straightforward in that. I haven't had the experience of something being super long, but you should be able to see. It should indicate not only the status of deployed, but also that deployed button as well, um, to make sure everything's available and working.
Thank you.
All right, so some more examples of some of that information. Um, for me personally, just having worked with executive teams, I think some of the dashboarding and being able to monitor is where their heart is often. A lot of times it's the ones with the dollar signs on it, honestly, but I think it's important to keep visibility to this because it is so easy to take for granted that you're saving tens hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then to look at a small licensing fee and forget the comparison. And so it is really important to be able to pull to speak to your folks that are making decisions about your program, your business users, and to make sure that what you've got set up is pulling everything that they need and regularly fed back to them. Um, so they can appreciate what's happening on a regular basis, plan accordingly for your future licensing needs, and then plan accordingly for future budgets, for new projects and so on. So um, again, just the monitor button on the left if you guys are following along in the document understanding online. um, Clicking on that and then getting into there should be consumption details there as well, where you click into a dashboard and it will pop up what is insights behind the scene. um, as it mentions at the bottom, UiPath Insights does need to be enabled. That's just they call it a platform SKU where that is available. If you buy the UiPath product, they allow you to have that built-in tracking of various insights about that automation within the platform itself. So just if you're an admin, make sure that's turned on, or if not, please have your admin make sure it is turned on so you can get access to all of this cool information. And then I definitely recommend segmenting the insight information you give. Not everybody's going to be interested in all of these things. An executive is not necessarily caring exactly how many documents are processed per month, but they do care about how much that costs to process them a different way or a way in the past versus what it costs now. How accurate that information is, where the external system or eventual system that it gets into and so on. So make sure that you capture requirements on that as well, as part of your process of creating this project and writing up all of your documentation. All right. So the process documents tab has this information. So I'm not going to go into huge detail on all this stuff, but you do have that list of documents that have been processed in the project, and you can get to that information either with activities or with an API, either way. But you do have this type of thing, again, super helpful in an audit trail. You've got details, you can connect it all and kind of follow things through. So if you do need to get into any really granular troubleshooting, that you have that ability to kind of follow the trail of everything and to see what the eventual result is for each of the process documents. It's also nice to see the number of AI units consumed and so on. So important to keep an eye on that. If you do have any anomalies just in your dashboarding on AI units, it's good to dig in and get information on that specifically and make sure that you're only being charged for the amount that you expect and that you understand how the licensing for that works super well. So you're not unnecessarily causing additional AI units by perhaps not using a best practice in your approach. All right. So here's just an example of that screen that you guys are able to look at as well and dig in. I do really appreciate the effort that they make on simplifying and keeping things really streamlined. The pages are very clean and then giving you the ability to really dig in if you want to. And if you need to go hunting for some specific issue, you can really get granular and get into the details of that, but it doesn't feel like you're working in Excel spreadsheets all day by any means. So they do make it as manageable as possible, even if you're processing, a million documents in your project. They make it kind of consumable where you can manage the data and still troubleshoot pretty easily. All right, let's talk through some more best practices. All right, so getting into it a little bit more on some licensing, uh, model training, model serving, those are not things that consume AI units. So active learning does come with, it talks about advanced algorithms and so on. But I think it is really important for you to understand the licensing of projects to make sure that you're not causing unnecessary calls. You're not doing so just based on model training. All right. So in addition to that, kind of behind the scenes, the infrastructure that runs and scales under load, you don't have to go do a whole lot of specific things for, which is a really nice luxury that you guys don't have to worry about the infrastructure behind the scenes, that's really just managed within the platform itself. So the end result of that is that instead of it, I think in prior times it could take a good little while to get a document in, for it to be reviewed by the system, for you to see results of it. I found that to at least for me personally, gotten quicker and quicker over time. Where I did find sometimes that even uploading 100 documents, it may sit there for a very extended length of time. I've noticed, at least doing similar projects in the future, that's getting more and more responsive. So there are updates being made in that area to make that quicker process so you aren't held up on your side. All right. So you do want to train your model layout by layout. I found this having worked on a project oriented to the given company had a lot of different local bank accounts and happened to have, bank accounts at some, I guess, older approach type banks that really just sent you the paper in the mail every month. And so they had people that would sit and scan this in every month. It was just part of their thing. And their monthly accounting processes were dependent on that being scanned in and then someone reconciling it back and forth and so on. So with that project, there is a bank statement model that we were able to use. We found that the best, the most successful approach with that in our, we went about it a few different ways, was to do a layout, but because the layouts were different by bank and sometimes highly different, to do a layout per bank in that case for the given bank statement. So you definitely want to consider that if you do have a number of different forms of the statements, that you may want to approach it differently if you're not getting the success that you were looking for initially. I've also found that UiPath really does do a good job with making resources available that can help give you guidance on some of this if you're working on an enterprise type project and you're not having as much success as you like. So they really were very helpful in getting us to where we wanted to be as far as the accuracy of the model and what it was gathering for us. Also, there was one last thing. You may have some more complicated labeling needs and may have to do a little bit of processing. So you may have to take information that normally comes in several rows and split it up, things like that. Um, that's a fairly normal thing. The classic was built to handle more of that, with the modern being a bit newer. It doesn't necessarily handle everything, or it may by now. It's been a few months since we wrapped up a prior project, but you may have a need to split up some of the data. It may not be just straight, field by field data the way that you need it. So keep that in mind and adjust that accordingly as needed. All right. So as far as, let's see, part number could consist of different columns. They're giving it really an example of some of the labeling details, labeling needs. As things come in, they may come in a given table format. I have seen some anomalies in this case. You may have to adjust transformation logic. So pulling things like we just talked about from multiple lines into one. I have seen issues sometimes with a symbol added, or issues like a bank statement. Sometimes you have to add the year. Bank statements don't necessarily always have that because you assume the date at the top would cover everything. So you may need to do things a little bit different and transform things a bit to get where your data in the final format that it needs to be in. And we won't go into much detail on this, but just keep that in mind, that you may need to adjust accordingly. All right, so we've already talked a bit about the feedback loop. All of us think it's really important. I don't think I've ever, at least in my experience, ever seen a business team that had full faith that everything's going to work perfectly from the start. Nor do I see a project that works perfectly from the start. So you always want that ability to go in and take a look and to influence the model in the future, in my opinion. So this gets into the few steps to import the data set. Again, very easy, super intuitive. You've got a couple of clicks of buttons and then uploading. You can often typically drag documents in there as well. By the way, for any of you guys that might be working on a project or understanding a DU project better, which I definitely recommend. I myself use ChatGPT to go create samples of whatever type of document I want, in order to have something where you're not having to go do the work to do that yourself. So that's a nice feature, to be able to drag the given type of document or a variety of documents into a project as test data, just so you can see how it works without having a lot of overhead, and be familiar with the layouts of the pages, what you can do, what you can't do, what you can upload, what the options are, and so on. So you have the opportunity to really go through all of these features, from building all the way out to monitoring, with some at least sample data out there. And it's not just theoretical, but more something you were able to put your hands on. All right. So this, to me, when they came out with this concept of the document focused large language model, I think it's super cool. So you can think of this as like a chat GPT, or any of the big models these days, that is really specialized and highly focused on bringing document information out, on doing, document processing and extracting document information very well. So what UiPath has taken the time to do is to, they have access to extensive amount of data for training and a lot of specialized knowledge on how to get the most success out of documents. So they have done that work for us and put the effort into to feed in all the samples of different types of documents to see, the many types of ways that data can be brought in and so on. So the end result is that you have a large language model that is really, really good at handling documents that you can use in a number of different ways. So the end result is that, a lot less work on us, that a lot less work around retraining and minimizing errors because of this specialized, training that UiPath has had the model do in the past. All right. So just a little bit more detail on what we just talked about. We've got higher accuracy. That's really the end result, that you spend less time, training and doing all the things, having to break up things, having to error handle and so on, because of the effort that's been put into the past. So I'm not going to spend too long on this. We only have about 15 minutes or so right now. We can go ahead and head to the next, but it's essentially details on what we just talked about. All right, so years ago when I, first was looking at process discovery, AI type tooling, there was a whole lot of me needing to label things, and that was terrible. So I'm so glad, and me needing to, look through everything and type from scratch into the blank fields. And so for those of you that never have had to do that, very much appreciate the fact that there is now Gen AI to do a lot of this work for us, or to at least give a good guess, because hey, editing is way better than coming up with stuff from scratch and having to type all the things yourself. So on the whole, that is why there's generative AI for document processing. It's super helpful to pull up a form and see it filled out with, best guesses at what each field is, along with the value and so on. So on the whole, that is why generative AI is consumed within the document understanding product, is to save us all time and effort. And nobody really enjoys labeling documents or anything similar to that. So they've made that tooling great, where you're really just tweaking things at that point, or doing some small correction, as opposed to having to go through all the stuff yourself. All right. So, like we just talked about, it is really nice to have, keys and values out there without you having to do it alone. So you're defining document types. You do not have to go tell it, if it's this, or this, well, it counts as an invoice. But if your face is on it and it's got your address, it's an ID card. So, um, again, saving us a whole lot of time and money. There's quite a number. Last time I checked, 30 or 40, I believe, um, pre-trained models as well. It's pretty nice. I'm sure that number is growing, and it may be well in excess of that. But UiPath, again, for each of the specific document types, has put in the work and fed in the model. So it's aware of the expected data fields typically. And should you start with something that's similar to that might have some specialized company fields in addition, or a few additional things, it's a nice place to start from. And then, use that as a base to then customize something additional that your given situation might need. All right. So we've already talked about generally about the idea of Gen AI. This is just extracting information. As you guys, I'm sure pretty much everybody on the call has used a large language model, a chat GPT, something else. And you're probably pretty familiar with its ability to assist with coming up with some of the summarized content and so on. So I won't get too much into this, but you do have these abilities. They're awesome. They save you time and money, so you don't have to come up with a whole lot of stuff yourself. All right, so as far as validation, consider this that the second opinion, you can always have a person go through every single thing. And a lot of projects will start out with humans heavily going through and really, spending some time making sure everything is perfect, giving it a lot of feedback and so on. But this is the ability to have a tool help you with that and to give a second opinion in case anything was missed. Because humans aren't perfect, but they can be helped by robots and be closer to that. So again, generative AI tooling that you guys are probably used to in many different ways, just looking over things and making sure that it looks accurate. So that's built into the tool set as well. And one of my favorite topics these days, I think this comes up a lot. If you haven't taken the course yet on prompt engineering, make sure you do. It's really good and worthwhile, and it probably a really important skill set for the long term. But prompt engineering is included in this, where you've got at least something that you can look at, edit, have a sample for, as you're creating prompts as needed. So I'll stop here. This is and one other distinction on document understanding versus IXP. IXP is more focused on is the document understanding product combined with communications mining, so natural language processing on the whole, for less structured things. So emails, for example, documents that don't have an expected format and expected fields every time. So that's called IXP, or document understanding. It tends to be focused more on given types of documents, less free form, just so you understand the difference between the two. All right, good. We got to the demo. I'll give a couple minutes. Do we have anything else we need to cover in chat? Any questions?
It looks like most of the questions have been answered, I think.
Yep. Yep. We have covered everything.
Okay. So let me, I'm gonna give everyone a link in the chat right now, if it allows me to do so. All right, actually, Will, do you mind just running this? It's just a link to a YouTube, or I'll just take over the screen share if that's okay. That's probably the easiest. And I'll make sure that the link to this demo, I'll put it on the document page. So I'm going to share it with. I want to make sure that it actually will share with the ability to hear. All right, are you guys seeing the big screen or the little screen? That doesn't tell me. You're seeing the big one. Let me stop it and switch it. No, it's not giving me the option at all. Here, I'm going to move it up here. I don't know if it'll end up being small. Does that come out tiny, or does it look okay as far as the size?
It's very tiny.
Okay, yeah. For some reason it's not giving me the choice. So I'll put this demo in the chat so you guys can all see it. It's just a YouTube video of a document understanding project with GPT built in. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. My screen has come up. Are you able to get this to show on your screen, Will? This video?
Let me check.
I'm not sure why it's not giving me the choice of which monitors, so it's gonna be tiny.
Yeah, 1 second.
And you guys should all have the link for your future reference. There you go.
The loan application form is a new type of document we haven't seen yet, so we need to train a new model from scratch. Training relies on data labeling, and historically that takes a lot of time. Now, with GPT, it's as simple as selecting GPT Predict, and you can see that the document is pre-labeled. All we need to do is review the labeled fields and adjust if needed, like down payment amount value in this case. With GPT, we can pre-label any document samples, accelerating training from a week to a day or two for complex scenarios, or down to minutes for simpler forms. Once all the sample documents are ready, we can easily create a new extractor. Let's call it Loan Application Model and use the dataset we've just labeled with GPT. Here is a Studio Web workflow built earlier for this automation. It downloads the attached documents, classifies them using GPT, and then extracts all needed data from each document. The first step for us is deciding which document is which, so we can send them to the best AI to extract the data. We call this classification. Using GPT to classify documents is really easy. I just need to describe the document types. In this case, we have application forms, employment letters, and we're adding ID cards. Here, GPT increases time to value as we don't need to write rules for classification or to train new ML models. To extract data from ID cards, we use one of the pre-trained UiPath specialized AI models. For the application form, we use the new specialized AI model we just trained with the help of GPT. Since employment letters are free-form, unstructured documents, we use generative AI with GPT to answer our questions. For example, what is the name of the employee? What is the name of the company? What is the salary of the employee? Let's run the project, and you can see how the robot executes all these actions step by step. If human validation is needed for any stage, a task is created in UiPath Action Center for the employees to review. Here, a task has been created for the loan application form, and you can see how the extractor we trained with GPT performed. Everything is perfect, so we can save and continue. Another task is created for the employment letter. We review the output and click Save for the robot to move forward. As you can see in the workflow, the extracted data is used to create a new loan application in the loan origination system. As part of end-to-end automation with UiPath, generative and specialized AI enables faster and more accurate document processing than ever before.
So you'll notice a little bit of verbiage change here and there. There are lots of different demos of different document understanding projects. A lot of them tend to be the classic experience, so it's good to take a look at those too and see the different older version versus the newer. But you can just on YouTube alone go out and find a number of those if you really want to see end to end all of the pieces and parts. And there's some really great sessions out there. There's a lot of the UiPath MVP team that have put content out that really digs in if you really want to get into some of the intricacies and be super familiar with the details of how to go about it and how to do your own project. If YouTube is your approach that works well for you, there is quite a lot out there. So feel free to go out there and look. Make note of the date so you can have a feel for whether or not it's a modern project or a classic project. But there's some really cool stuff out there that I think is worth digging into so you can wrap your head around it and be prepared for your exams in the future. All right, any last items on the chat?
Nothing else in the chat right now.
Perfect. So thank you guys for having us and giving us your time today. Feel free to contact us on the UiPath community if you have questions or need help with anything or get stuck. We're here to help.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy and Will. Great session to the whole team, really. You guys did a great job presenting today. Thank you. And thanks for all the help in the chat, especially with the participants. You guys were rolling with the questions. Very cool.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everybody.
Everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.